Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and today I'm with David Alvas. He is a multi-martial arts school owner, real estate investor, and now he just focuses more on helping other membership-based businesses and does personal finance coaching. And if you are thinking about getting out of the daily operations of your martial arts school, so if it's already operating super well, super profitably, and you're like, hey, this is cool, but maybe I want to not be the sole owner, operator. And maybe I want to look on taking on partners and not be in the school every day, besides maybe like taking your kids to class or something. This is going to be the episode for you. So, David, thanks for coming on here.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, tell us about your school. So, you have two schools, been open for a while. Tell us about the numbers of the school and kind of like what that looks like for you.
Okay, great. I've been, I guess I'll start from the very beginning. So I've been training since I was 4 years old. So 1988 is when I started training. I've been assisting in martial arts schools and teaching since 1997 when I earned my first degree black belt. And then really around 2003 is when I really went full-time professional and took over as the manager of USK. I lived in Homestead, and I got an interview with the then owner of USK, got the job, relocated about 70 miles north of where I grew up, managed the school, and then in 2009 purchased the school. When I was the manager of the school was only grossing about $12,000 a month. When I joined in 2003, by the time I took over as the owner, the school was doing around 40,000 a month. So in a 6-year span, we went from 12,000 to 40,000 a month average. That was a big thumbs up from my then boss instructor to give the green light for me to begin the purchase process of the school. And there's really cool stories around that we can dive into later. Like there was a really cool litmus test that he gave me to see if I was ready to buy the school. We can talk about that later.
No, I want to hear now. Dive into the litmus test.
Okay. So when 2007, 8, 9, the big recession, I remember when that happened, our school got hit very hard. So a lot of the growth that we had accumulated was like wiped out in 6 months. And because we had a lot of corporate executives in our area, and when you have a huge recession like that, corporate executive jobs are usually the first ones to get cut. So a lot of our members, the parents, were losing their jobs left and right. So our numbers dropped radically. So at one point, I'm in QuickBooks and I'm getting ready to do payroll, and I finished payroll, I finished rent, and we have $1,000 left in the checking account. That's it. We're $1,000 away from it's over. So my instructor, his name was Master Arthur Pryor, came in to my office, said, let's go to lunch. Went to lunch. He slid a sticky note across the table, and he said, this is the password to Bank of America. Okay, I already made you an authorized user across the board. You just need to go to the bank after we're done and sign. But you are now in charge of everything. So if you can navigate us out of this shit show of a recession that we're in, I'll sell you the school. And that was, a big challenge, because he basically gave me the keys with $1,000, and our income was down like 50% in 6 months, and said, if you can get us out of this, I'll sell you the school. And I got out of it. And
That's kind of like
I eventually bought the school in 2009, August 2009.
It's funny. It's kind of like your dad gives you like a 30-year-old Cadillac. Like, all right, if you can fix it, you can have it. You're like, great.
It's
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So when you ended up purchasing it, how did you purchase 100% of it or a portion of it? How did that work?
So I had saved up $30,000. I put that down as a down payment. I bought the school for $260. So I financed the $230 over 5 years, and I paid it off in 2.5 years.
You financed it with him or financed it privately with a loan?
Yeah, we had a wonderful relationship. We had a very, very strong relationship. He had seen me come up in martial arts because we were in the same organization since I was 4 years old. And he had watched me in all the testings, the tournaments. He watched me teach clinics all before I had gotten the job as the manager of it. And then when I became the manager for him, we became very, very close. And that relate. I mean, we had a contract, we had lawyers involved. We did it, we did it the right way. I had we had a note that was recorded with the state. Like it was legit, but he did allow me to make payments, and I ended up paying it off in half.
Cool. So how did you come up with an evaluation of 260? Wait, and that was for the whole thing, like 100% of it?
100%. Yeah.
How did you
Um,
come up with that evaluation?
so it was worth, to be honest with you, on paper, all the CPAs said I was overpaying. All of them. They said you're overpaying by about $50,000. And we came up with the evaluation by just doing, 2.5, 3 times gross annual profit, right? So the the school had great numbers, but it wasn't very profitable because it was carrying me as a manager, and I was making a lot of money as a manager. I was making almost $100,000 a year, right?
Okay.
So that has to get factored in there too, right? So
Mm.
the other thing that was factored in was I overpaid, and I was willing to overpay because he gave me my shot, right? This guy gave me my career in martial arts, and I wanted to have some of that sentimental value and thank you value built in because I knew I was lucky enough that I had really good mentors at the time. And they said to me, listen, 50,000 seems like a lot of money, but to him, that's a really nice way of saying thank you, that he's going to feel good about selling you the business. And if you play your cards right, you won't even remember 5 or 10 years after the sale that you paid 50,000 more. And they were so right. Like, I mean, the $50,000 might as well have been a dollar because
I
in
don't
my
I don't think you really even overpaid. I mean, how we like to do it whenever we sell equity into a school, because I've done that a couple times,
right.
a- is we look at the gross revenue times 12, and then that's the value. So if it's 40K a month the school's doing, that'd be 480K a year.
Hmm.
And then we'd say, okay, that's the value. So if you're gonna buy half of it, it'd be 240K. So to me, you got like a 40% discount. Now, finding someone who will actually buy it for what the value is, that's the hard part,
Right.
right? I
Yeah.
sold a school, my main school, about 6 months ago, and like I did not value it at what it was actually like market value. But finding someone who's gonna operate a martial arts school and buy it, this is not, you're not gonna find some dentist or business executive who's just gonna buy it and it's gonna run itself. Like they have to like really be an operator, right? Like you were an operator, and eventually maybe they can work themselves out of it. But I've
Right.
never seen someone who just like bought the business, is totally hands off, and it just runs itself, and they collect a check successfully. And if someone has, I want to know about it so I can have them on here. So
So
we, yeah,
I have a question
yeah,
for you about that because a lot
yeah.
of the traditional models that I look at in the general business world, not the martial arts industry, is always looking at some kind of multiple of net profit or EBITDA. So how did you come up with like 12 months gross?
Yeah, I just honestly, we Google search like how to value a business, and there's 1,000 different ways, right?
Right.
It just depends like what argument you want to make with the person you're negotiating against,
Right.
right? My
I actually
business,
like what you did because it makes more sense for our model in our industry.
it's also simple, right? And it's like, to me, felt fair, right? Like,
Right.
okay, the business is worth this 40K a month. Then it's worth, about 480K. Maybe there's some assets in the school and stuff like that. Okay, it's worth like 500, and it makes it clean and simple. But once again, finding someone who will actually do that. What I did is I sold to someone who was a former instructor, which if you can do that, like that guy did for you, it's the most amazing thing ever because they get to make their life out of it. And then I got for me, like if I'm being completely transparent, I got 75K up front, and then I just took a portion of gross revenue for the next 10 years to kind of pay off. So not a lot of money up
Smart.
front, but yeah,
Smart.
but for me it was like, okay. At first I had a portion of the profits. That was my goal. I was like, okay, cool. I'll just take a portion of the profits. But then I was thinking, then I have to control what this person spends on the business card. And that doesn't make sense to me, and that doesn't make sense to him,
Right.
right? I was like, you should be able to spend whatever you want without me being like, hey, why did you buy Chipotle for lunch today, right?
Yeah.
So how we did it is I took a percentage of the gross and said, I looked about how much our schools profit. So let's say on average, our schools profit about 30% revenue, anywhere between 30 and 40%, but generally like 30, 35. And I went to ChatGPT and said, okay, if my gross profit is 30% and I wanted to take the same percentage of profit from just the gross revenue, what percentage would that be? It gave me that number because I'm not great at math like that. You're a personal finance coach, so maybe you're a lot better. I'm an idiot.
No, I'm not.
So
I'm just like that. Because
yeah,
personal finance coach's mindset.
yeah. So with ChatGPT, it literally makes everything 1,000 times easier. So I just asked them how to do it. And I said, okay, cool. I want it to be this percentage then. And how much will I make about per year? To be about this much. All right, cool. Now that person can spend whatever they want. I'll just get a check each month. And eventually I just had it kind of get smaller and smaller throughout the years. And hopefully the school will be doing better and better as he takes over. And he'll pay me about the same amount over time. But for me, like finding someone who took over that I could trust with the students that I love and, worked with for a decade, like that meant a lot. Cause like some of those kids, like I always say, uh, to especially the kids that have been around for a while, like God forbid, I don't have any kids myself yet, but if like one of those kids, like their parents got into like a horrible, I don't know, car accident or something, and they were stuck and didn't have like, family to take over, like I would take any of those kids in a heartbeat. Like I would take
Right.
care of them.
Right.
That's how much they mean to me. But yeah, we like to keep it at 12 months, keep it simple and easy.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, and then we also do partnerships, like, and some of them have worked out great. Some of them have not worked out that great,
Yeah.
to be honest. But when someone comes on new on board and they're maybe an instructor and like, hey, I want to open up a new location, well, typically they can do it on their own, or they can partner up with someone, and then typically we'll sell them equity, and we'll do it like super cheap. Like we'll evaluate the business, even if there's nothing. We'll say, okay, the business is valued at 200K. Put in, let's say, 50K, and you'll get 25%. Okay, I think we even valued even lower than that, and like because they're coming in at the beginning, and
Right.
then once they're bought in, they put in this giant check. It's hard for them to kind of run away when school isn't doing well or things are
Yeah.
difficult, and they'll make more money, so they'll want to stay because now they're getting paid as an employee and as profit.
And on that point, I think one of the very important things about bringing a partner on is not just the money, it's getting them on the lease as a
Mm,
guarantor.
mm,
Because for me, both my partners and all future partners that I'm going to have, we have a young lady that's in training right now. She's already banked her buy-in because I helped her with finance coaching. So she's already banked her buy-in. So she wants to buy in, but all my partners have to be guarantors on the lease because anybody can walk away from 50 grand. Most people don't like to walk away from the idea or won't walk away because they know they're going to get sued by them. So,
mm.
so that's an extra, like I'm not going to take all that risk. You're going to take your equal percentage of share in it. And if you aren't willing to do that with me, you're not going to be my partner.
That's a great idea. I never thought about it that way. In fact, I try to avoid any guarantee on a lease. When you can, you can't always. Sometimes the
Yeah,
landlord's like,
no, especially in today's real estate market where they feel like they have the upper hand.
yeah. So what we did for our last one, and if you're listening to this, you're thinking about negotiating a lease, and you have some extra cash, and you're the only one on the lease, like there's no one else. We gave them extra security deposit. We gave them a 6 month security deposit instead of 1 month. And then over the course of like 5 years, we get back one of those security deposits every year. So
Great idea.
we had to have enough cash to do it, but I didn't want to have my house up when I had these other part in my head. I was like, I don't want to have my house up with my other partner if this fails, the people that are operating it. But the partners need to be operating partners. Like when someone comes on, they're like, hey, I want to be I'll give you money and I want to own some of your martial arts school. I'll be like, I don't care. The value is in the operator and the person. I don't need the money. I can get a loan from a
Right.
bank or something, or I could just save up for a couple months. I don't need that. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, I feel exactly the same way. And when you mentioned some of the partners worked out well and some haven't. So I only have two partners, but again, they've been with me for one has been with me 17 years and the other one's been with me 21 years. So there's a very strong connection and bond. And I won't take a partner on if you're not willing to be on the lease. B, they've got to be an operator. I'm not going to buy. I don't care if someone throws money at me and just wants to be a silent partner. Like, I'm not interested. And 3, I will never partner with somebody that I'm not willing. This is a big one for me. I don't know if most people are going to want to do this, but for me, this is a big one. If I were to die, I would have to feel comfortable leaving my children to you to raise them. Why do I say that? Because that tells you what kind of quality human being they are. If I don't feel they're that level of a human being where I'm willing to leave my children to you if I die, I'm not partnering with you. So for me, though, that criteria for me is like, it leaves a very small chance that things are going to go wrong. There always can be a thing. It always could go wrong, and I'm not naive about that. But it really limits the potential of a negative downfall. The upside is way better when you run it through that litmus test.
Do you have the attorneys put that in writing? Like, hey, this person's my business partner, and if I die, they have to take my kids.
Actually, one of my partners is the person who will be in charge of my trust. So,
okay. Wow.
So
beautiful.
one of my partners is, in fact, his name is Hans. He's been with me since he was 14. He's 35. He is my partner in my main school. And if something were to happen to my wife and I, he would be in charge of the trust, and he would be responsible for raising my kids.
So that's amazing. One of
so
the
again,
schools,
walking the walk, right? Not just doing this. Like, I'm big on that, by the way. Everything I'm going to tell you today, like, none of it is hypothetical. Like, it's what I do.
Yeah, I think that's the right idea, because if you don't want to talk to someone or if you don't want to have a conversation for someone in 5 minutes, you shouldn't be in business with them for 5 years, right? Like,
No.
You want to be with people who you're going to enjoy hanging out with. And even as a personal finance coach, and I know you're doing business coaching for membership-based businesses, I do one-on-one right now. I don't do any group. I will do group probably in the future, but right now I do all one-on-one. And if I don't want to talk to this person one-on-one every week
100%.
for like 6 months, I'm not going forward, because it's just like, one member is not going to make any significant difference in my life. It's not like I'm going to go buy a boat, right? So it's just not enjoyable. So it's be the same thing when you have partners in your business. If you don't truly enjoy hanging out with them and being around them, you shouldn't be in business with them.
100% agree. And I'm very close with my partners. Like, we have a quarterly, when we take profit, we have a quarterly celebration dinner. We go on a 1-week retreat every December to plan the next year and the goals and the vision for the 5-year plan and all that stuff. We my partners have been over for Thanksgiving dinner. Like, if I'm not, I don't want stress. So if I can't feel completely like myself around these people, they're not going to be my partners.
So tell me about the structure you have now. So one school does about 1.2 million a year. So it does like 95K a month? How much is that a month?
It hovers between 80 and 90 in that ballpark. And then every now and then we'll have a spike month where, like, Black Friday can go 130, 150 and all that stuff. But yeah, summertime, summer camp, usually much higher months. Yeah, we have after school, which we started because of COVID. And if I'm being totally transparent, it's good, but I don't like it. I really wish. Okay. Like, I never needed after school prior to COVID. We were doing 75, 80 a month before COVID, and then COVID it changed the whole game. So we just rolled with it, right? Roll with the punches. But yeah, we're about 1.2. The second school is about 350. 20% profit margin. Sometimes can get up to 25%, but really 20% because it's a bigger operation, takes a lot of staff. The smaller location, oh my goodness, I love that place. Like 40% profit margin, 39% to be exact. Okay. For the last 3 years, it's averaged 39%. Takes my partner runs it on her own. Maybe every now and then needs a part-timer to come in. But man, I love that model. Like, we know for sure, like, all of our future locations are going to model the smaller school, not the bigger school.
So that one does about 30K a month.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's great. I was talking to John Bussard. You know him?
Yes, I consider him a mentor. I actually visited with him a few weeks ago.
Oh, cool. Yeah, he's kind of moved towards the same model, like small, one operator. I know there was an author, I forget his name, wrote a bunch of books. I'm trying to get him on the podcast. I mean, he wasn't doing well, I think, physically. Small Dojo, Big Profits. You know that guy?
No, but I love the name. That's perfect.
Yeah, so yeah, he's written a bunch of books about exactly that concept. He's not so much involved as a coach in the industry. I think he was having some health issues. I never actually met him. We just emailed a back and forth. I bought his books, but honestly I never read them. I really should,
Right.
because I'm just curious. But yeah, that model could be really good because I mean, I know schools, I've even had clients that are doing 75, 80K a month and they profit like 4 or 5K a month because their operations are
Oof.
too big, or like,
Yeah.
their rent is 20 grand or 25 grand a month. And I'm like, God damn, like you guys are really splitting it thin. But when they go to conventions or my some martial arts industry events, they tell everyone how much the gross
I
they're
can't
doing,
stand
right?
it. I honestly,
Yeah.
Matt, I can't freaking stand it, man. I also can't stand talking about student count. I have no clue how many students I have, Matt. I don't know. I don't
That's
give a
funny.
shit. I don't give a
Okay.
shit because I can't pay my mortgage with number of students.
Mm.
Like nobody accepts that. Like I write on a sticky note to my landlord, "Hey, I got 600 members. Would you take that for rent this month?" No, they take money. It's
Yeah.
there's I have there are important reasons to knowing your student numbers to figure out like how much money you need to charge for two and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
Student value.
yeah, that's all, and that's great. But it should not be the focus. It should be one of the lower tier things. It's gross profit and net profit, man. That's it. Like those are the two numbers that every business on planet Earth lives and dies by. And coming back to the small business stuff, like if you look at to the smaller footprint, everywhere I look now, all the Starbuckses are getting smaller. All the Dunkin' Donuts are getting smaller. Um, Unless it's a big box store where you need space like a Dick's Sporting Goods or a Target or a Walmart, all of these service-based businesses, they're getting smaller because they're realizing that they make more money and they're not trying to be this big impressive thing. Like, yeah, 25 years ago, you went into a Starbucks that was 2,500, 3,000 square feet. It was cool. It looked cool. But the other day I visited a Starbucks, I could almost touch the walls on both sides because they're realizing that it's smaller footprints better and real estate's becoming much more expensive. Um, so I think whether people like the big model or the small model or not, the direction that real estate is going to just simply dictate that you can't have a 10,000 square foot school anymore because they're just going to charge you, like you said, $25,000-$30,000 a month.
So for the
That's
schools
just my
that,
opinion.
yeah, that's an interesting point. I haven't noticed a thing personally about Starbucks or these other businesses. I just see Walmart's getting bigger and bigger. Like there's always like a
Yeah,
new super Walmart that's like the
yeah,
size of a small city. I'm like, God damn. But yeah, I didn't think
yeah,
about it for the other businesses. But yeah, look at profit more than gross. I don't care. And I can't tell you how many times I get on a phone with a martial arts business owner and they're like, oh, I got 300 students. And I'm like, okay, what's your revenue? They're like, like
yeah,
12 grand a month. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, something's not happening.
yeah.
Is it something you get? Yeah.
It's one of the biggest topics that I coach in because part of what makes my business coaching different is we start with the finances. So I teach operators how to use QuickBooks. I teach them how to read a P&L, a balance sheet, all that stuff. And then to understand what I call, you ever read the book Profit First?
Yep.
Okay, percentage allocations. So a lot
Yep.
of what I do marries like profit first with some Dave Ramsey stuff, with some Grant Cardone. So it's like my Jeet Kune Do of finance. Like I took all the best of all these, really big names and combined them together. And that's where we start. We start by, before you talk to me about how many students you have and how amazing your classes are and all that stuff, like, what are your numbers? And what I have found is they're very defensive about it in the beginning. And then when we walk through it together and they get to the place where they can read a P&L, it's a major holy shit moment.
Mm.
Like, they're like, wow, this is actually fun. I actually understand where I need to be going. And I just think that's what it is. I just think it's fear that keeps a lot of our industry from focusing on what they really should be focusing on. And they focus on what they're comfortable with. That's why when you go to an event, they all say they have 700 billion members and they focus on that. Or, hey, I did $100,000 this month, but I actually ran negative because I have way too much staff.
Mm.
you know, but
Yeah,
they
and
don't know.
yeah, most martial arts business owners didn't go to business school, right?
Right.
They just took over a bit from their martial arts instructor because they loved it. And I didn't even go to business school either, but I
Neither did
did.
I.
Yeah, but like I learned from podcasts, audiobooks, books. My brother, who's a huge mentor to me. But
Awesome.
also, if you never read this book, if you like maybe don't have a mentor in your life, it's called The Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman. The
I'm gonna
Personal
write that
MBA.
down.
You don't need to read it, but
Oh, okay.
other
I would
people,
love.
yeah, I don't
Sounds
think you need
great.
to read it. It is pretty good. I mean, it's just a book. It's like, okay, here's everything you to learn in an MBA course, and it's maybe a little bit of a bigger book, but it's better than spending for 20 grand a year and going to school for it. So,
Yeah.
well, maybe that I'm sure that has value too, especially when it comes to networking. But yeah, the Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman. It's a great book. If
Nice.
you're listening to this right now, just go to Amazon and buy it. So I want to hear about more the school. So when you have a school that does about 1.2 a year, what is when you get a partnership in a school that's already established like that? Are you having them buy in on that evaluation, or they buy in earlier and they grew it?
What I did with my first two partners, I won't do again because they have a very they've been with me for a very long time. They put a tremendous amount of sweat equity in. And frankly, I wanted to just launch pad them. And I also knew that if I launch padded them, that it would result in me being able to do what I wanted to do on location 3, 4, 5, whatever I end up having, because um, I'm not going to have the personal connection to those people that I have with the first two partners, because they're going to produce the instructors that will operate locations 4, 5, and above. The young lady that's going to run our third one, she kind of, I've known her since she was 2 years old because her mother trained with me and her older brother trained with me, and her mother is now my partner in my smaller school. So uh, she's going to open location number 3, and I've known her since she was 2, and I feel like I'm kind of like a fatherly figure to her. So, but I let them. I mean, listen, they spent real money. I mean, it was for most people, it's a check most people can't write. Like my partner that bought in with my main school wrote $100,000 check. Okay, um, but but yeah, no, it's not anywhere near the valuation, right? Like if he had to if he bought 25%, if that were the case, he would have had to put in over 300 grand. So I only had him buying for 100 because I wanted him in that role, and I wanted to launch pad the business, and I wanted to launch pad my freedom and my ability to oversee other schools by stepping out. So there was a lot of other factors built into the down payment, so to speak, than just straight math on paper.
Mm. And how do you structure in a day to day the partnership with those people, or I would say the communication with those people, because you don't go
Mm,
to the school often besides when you're bringing your kids to class to take class. So how do you actually, I guess, how do you create your meeting structure and your communication with them day to day or
that's
week to
great.
week?
All right. So every Monday, 11 a.m., we have a 1 hour training, physical training, because I feel like it's very important for us to remember what gave us this life. And I think one of the mistakes I see in coaching people and just having been in the industry my whole life, there is this. I think there's this stigma that drives me crazy, which is like we're all rushing to get out of teaching, right? It's like it's almost like we hate what we once loved, or I don't know, like it's not cool anymore. I don't feel that way at all, Matthew. Like, like if I had to go back in and teach classes for a week, I would love it. I absolutely love teaching, right? And I think for me at least, that's a superpower, right? Like, because I'm still passionate about my schools. I still love my schools, but I feel like through great mentorship and some great advice, I've been able to separate myself to where I can love my school, but still not be in it every day. And I think people have a hard time with that because when they love it, they feel like they got to be there every minute and micromanage everything. So if you can find a way to do that, I think it's a really healthy balance. So we train every Monday at 11 because, again, I want us to be connected. Like, hey, don't forget, this is what all, you know, has made me a millionaire, has going to make you guys millionaires, and we're not going to forget it. And we're going to also walk the walk, like all my instructors are in shape, right? And they're going to be in shape. So we train hard for an hour every Monday. And then we have a 30 minute to 1 hour meeting immediately after that, where we talk about the weekly goals. What do we got to accomplish? What's coming up? What does it require? And that's it. That's the extent of how much I'm in there. And then they're open all week long. They could be texting me and saying, "Hey, I'm thinking of this. What do you think?" "Yeah, hey, go do it. Good idea." Or, "No, don't do that. That's going to be a problem." Or, "Put that off till next month." And that's it. That's my. And then I also do like some live videos in the community group for our schools where I want to stay connected, so people see, hey, there is still somebody in the clouds over there that is overseeing everything, even though you don't see him in the building every day. So I'll do like parenting advice, or I'll give some how to take martial arts philosophy and use it in your everyday life with your kids, so that there's constant connection, right? So that's kind of what I do every week.
So when they're texting you or when they have issues, like what's the main issues you'll have with your operators and your partners on like a day to day when you're not involved every day?
How the big one is staff, which I think most schools experience. And it's not for us. It's not. They're asking really high level questions, right? They're asking me things like, "I watched so and so run through their teaching requirements today on the floor I'm noticing that I'm struggling getting through to them when it comes to having them do this. What would you recommend? What would you have said to me or done with me when I was struggling like that to get them to step up to the plate?" So it's questions like that.
Okay. And do you usually answer that through text message? How do you usually go about it?
Again, because we have a very, very long relationship in history and we know each other so well, I can be very quick and direct and they know what I mean. Yes, in certain instances, I will say, "Hey, this is not a text. This is heavy. We need to call me when class is over." You know what I mean?
Mm.
So, but yeah, we will. We definitely. Our communication is excellent. And funny, we have 6 core life skills in our school. One of them is communication. It's discipline, respect, courage, discipline, health, communication. So we emphasize as partners. We try again to walk the walk. So we emphasize as partners. Whatever we're teaching the students, we try to have it amongst ourselves.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit to real estate because I know uh, now you do a lot of house flipping. I think you've been doing it for a while. It sounds like a couple decades, maybe.
20
Um,
years, yeah.
20 years. Okay, cool. So were you doing that? You were doing that while you were running your martial arts school?
I've been doing it since I took the job as the manager in 2003 at USK. And the reason that came up was so my grandfather was an electrician and I was always he was my hero. He still is my hero. He passed a long time ago, but like the memories of him and what I think he would do in a situation still guides my life to this day. So he was an electrician, so that was always intriguing. And when I got to USK, my boss's wife was a interior designer, decorator, and also flipped homes. So I was like, man, this is awesome. Like I told her how much I loved what my grandfather did, and she would like take me to go see all the projects she was doing and say, "You see how I did this? I did it because of this. And if this were my personal home, I would never do it, but because it's a flip, and she starts teaching me. And I bought my first condo that year in 2003 for 50 grand. I bought a 1 bedroom in a hellhole of a neighborhood. Like you could hear gunshots type of neighborhood across the street. So, but it was a start, right? So I got it. I started doing all the work myself and just learned by, YouTube was just starting to become like, where you could barely search things online. So I would like dig on the internet, like to see how somebody rewired a microwave or moved plumbing and stuff like that. And I flipped that apartment and made $10,000 6 months after I bought it. And I thought I was Donald Trump. Like I thought I got 10 grand. I was a young dude in my early 20s. I was like, man, I'm rich. I was
Yeah.
like, this is amazing. So flipped that. I think the next place I bought was like a townhouse. Did the same thing. At that point, I was with my wife. We were dating. she helped me, which was the coolest thing in the world. I was like, oh, she's into this. This is going to be amazing. Not only is she into martial arts, but she likes to help me renovate. Like, this is I'm going to marry her, which obviously we've been together 17 years married. So that worked out. And it was just that. It was like it went from a condo to a townhouse to a small house to a bigger house to a bigger house to $1 million house to a new construction $1.5 million house to a $2 million house, so on and so forth. And I was a landlord in there and an Airbnb and all that stuff, but I prefer flipping over all the other stuff.
Why do you prefer flipping?
Bigger chunk. I just like the bigger chunks of cash. The landlord is a much slower, longer build. So if you're in it for like, I think someone should be a landlord if you have if you've got $1 million in cash laying around and you want to buy 2 houses for $350,000, $400,000 somewhere in the country, bury your money in there, leave it for 20 or 30 years and collect a little bit of rent, which is not really why you're into it. It's not the rent payment every month. It's what you're going to sell that place for in 20 years is where you get your big payoff. But it's nice to collect, $800, $1,000, $1,500 a month to put in your pocket anyways, and then recoup your funds in 20 years when you retire. That's cool. But for me, I really liked getting 50, 70, 100. I've had my biggest profit on one house was during the pandemic. We doubled the price of the house from 750 to 1.45 million. And I only put 200 grand in. So we made a net profit of $500,000.
Damn. So was that something that was only possible during COVID situation, or you just found like a gem that happened to work out? Like,
I think it was both. And I should clarify that it was really a net profit of 400 grand because I had to give 100,000 of it to the IRS. So it was 400 after all was said and done.
Yeah, let's talk about that, not gross, right? Still amazing.
In our pocket, 400. So we bought in a community we loved in October 2020, right when real estate was beginning to go through the roof because of the great relocation. And we bought this house that was 4,000 square feet, 5-bedroom, 4-bath, in a wonderful neighborhood in a part of Florida that the country had not really found out about yet, right? And what happened was this was a builder grade, meaning this was the model for the community in 2007 when they built it. So it was decked out, but it was decked out in 2000 style. So it was dark browns. Remember what everything looked at in 2000s, crumble stone backs, but it was like the trim work on the walls, the ceiling, built-in Sub-Zero refrigerator, that type of quality, but nobody could see it when they went to go look at the house because they couldn't get past the dark cherry floors and the woodwork on the walls. And when my wife and I walked in, I'm like, oh my God, you changed the floors and you paint and a few other things, and this is a castle. It's a castle. It's amazing. So that combined with everybody flooded Florida. And when they couldn't find houses, remember when houses were going, sight unseen for $100,000, $200,000 over ask because people were just throwing money? When all the popular areas like Miami, Boca Raton, West Palm Beach filled up, the realtors started saying, hey, look at Delray and Boynton Beach, which is where I live in Boynton Beach. And people in the country didn't know where Boynton Beach was. But now they started looking going, oh my God, the houses look just like all the houses in Miami and Fort Lauderdale and Boca, but it's in this city we never heard of. So now the flood came. So when my realtor called me, who's been a very good friend of mine also since the beginning, he calls me, he knows the story, right? He knows if he can ever sell it for the right, all he has to do is pick up the phone. Hey, David, it's time, right? So he picks up the phone, he goes, if my calculations are correct, I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I know we bought it for $750, but I think I can sell this for 1.4. And I said, no, you can't. It's only been 9 months, 10 months. There's no way. He goes, David, you don't understand what's happening in the market. People are buying from all over the country, sight unseen, cash buyers from New York and California. He listed it at 9 a.m. By noon, we had 4 all-cash offers, sight unseen, and a bidding war began. And we sold it for almost $100,000 over ask in 4 hours. And that was a big moment for our family. We love that house and we were actually contemplating not selling it, but we couldn't turn down that kind of money, because when I take that money and put it in the market, in the stock market and other things like that, it's going to be big time in 20 years. So we made the decision to sell it.
Were you living in the house?
Yes. Oh, that's
Oh,
another
you don't.
thing. We lived in most of our flips.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
And the
you
reason
live
we
in.
did that, yeah, because it's secured. So it's like, here's what happens. So we buy the house for us, we renovate it, and then it's like, if we can flip it, great, we'll make money. If we can't flip it, we don't lose anything. We're living here. It's a nice house.
Right, but how often do you have to move? That sounds like a giant pain in the ass.
It was a giant pain in the ass. And thank God I love my wife. She's amazing. Never would have happened without my wife. We moved on average every year.
Oh my God. What do you do with furniture and like stuff on the wall?
Facebook Marketplace.
Oh
It's
my
selling off.
God. That's so crazy.
But it
Um,
worked. We made a lot of money, thank God.
so weren't you switching like school districts for your kids? Like, how do they handle it?
Great question. I believe in a lot of communication. So I believe a lot of it is what you teach and how you live and what you show. And one of the things that we were very sensitive about was constantly talking to our children about what was going on. And when they were very little, they're 8 and 13 now, but when they were very little, we made everything about being an adventure and about learning while we're going on the adventure. And we're going to go hunting for houses. And we involved them in the process because I wanted them to learn what we were doing. And to what we've seen to this day, there hasn't been an issue. Like, the other thing too is that for us, the martial arts school was more of the home base for our children than the schools. Like, all of the friends that my kids consider close are from the studios, not from
Yeah,
their
yeah,
public
yeah.
school.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So there was always that home base of, no matter where we go, we're coming back here, right? 2-3 times a week, we're coming back here, right? And, my partners are their aunts and uncles. And so there was always that home base, right? So we had a lot of communication about that. And we wanted them to understand that if you can master change and embrace change, you're ahead of 99% of the world, because most people hate change. And I told them, like, if you can learn to look at change as improvement and growth, you're going to be in a great place in your life. So that's a lot of the messages that we taught our kids, and now they're completely immune to it. Like, if we were to tell them we were selling, they would be like, "Okay, show me the Zillow listing so I can pick my bedroom." I swear to God, that's what they said. This house that I'm in. They literally,
Yeah.
my oldest son is like, "Send me the link. I'd like to start looking at how I'm going to design my room." That was his response.
Wow. That's I think a very unique way to do flips. So will you only flip if you live in the house, or do you do other ones that are not involved in you living there? Because I think that kind of
I
limits you a
did
little
two of
bit.
them. I did two of them that we didn't live in. And, for total transparency, because everything I'm saying sounds like sunshine and roses and rainbows. I did an Airbnb last year in Orlando. Bought a really nice 4-bedroom house, beautiful house, beautiful little 1,500 square foot, like, perfect for vacation, heated pool, everything, right? In a gorgeous community. Big mistake. We lost $60,000 in 6 months. We couldn't get it rented out, no matter how gorgeous it was. I went through 3 different management companies trying to rent it out. What was the mistake? Orlando. Orlando is so overly saturated, and literally across the street from where I bought it, they were building developments with the entire purpose of the development to be Airbnb style, rentals. And I'm like, I can't compete with this. Like, I'm getting drowned out of the market. So we sold it in under about 6 or 7 months after we bought it, and took a $60,000. I don't remember, it was 40 or 60,000 for some reason, but we took a pop, and the pop came on the renovations, right? Because we made it, really beautiful, and we took a hit. So there was a lot of victories, but there were a couple no-goes in there.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you what was your worst flip, because if you're in real estate or any investment where you put money involved, you're not gonna make money on everything. You're gonna lose.
Yeah. We Oh, by the way, coming back to why we did it as a home too, like, in a lot of instances, if we waited 2 years, there's no capital gains tax when you sell it.
Right.
That's
Okay.
another reason. So several houses we were able to take all the profit, because we did wait right till the 24-month mark and sold.
Mm.
Um, a bunch of them, I would say, some of them was just like a time loss because some of them we just offloaded for what we put into it, but like we lost a tremendous amount of sweat equity, but we didn't lose dollars.
Yeah. But
So it depends
you
on how you
gain
look at
knowledge
it.
and experience, which is more
100%,
valuable.
100%. Like again, if I were to ever do an Airbnb again, I would really be more careful about what area I chose. Like I'd want to choose something that was very popular area, but not like Orlando popular, where it's like the entire city is hotels and Airbnb, and almost very few people actually live in that. It's a vacation city.
Yeah, I tell this story. It's probably like my most popular like post ever on Facebook. Of I lost $187,000 in crypto overnight. When I had it in a company called Voyager. Are you familiar?
Yes, I'm in Bitcoin
Yes.
right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, after this, I sold, but um, yeah, I was gonna buy another investment property, and I was like, this is paying like 9% in US dollar coin. That's so much easier. I was giving me 9% interest. All I do is flick my thumb and I have to go buy real estate and manage it and all this crap. So I would much rather do that. So I'm just shoveling money. And it wasn't even like super risky investments. I had like Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe a couple smaller coins. But the company that was holding it, Voyager, which was a publicly traded company that sponsored NASCAR, went under, and I lost everything. But I ended up years later getting it back, which is amazing. Not all of it. I would say about 75%. I couldn't believe it. Like, literally one day I got a check for like 90 grand, and then I got another check for like 45 grand, and another check for like 10 or 15 or something. So I got most of it back. But I thought, like, I was like, wow, you know what? I need to invest in things I can actually control, and in
Right,
my business, and less in things that are just like getting caught up in the hype. Um, I was convinced for a year I was never seeing any of that money back. And like, when it goes through bankruptcy court, who knows? And when I got some money, I was like, holy shit. But yeah, I still hold a little bit of Bitcoin, maybe like $1,000 worth. I haven't even looked at it. And I know it's super, super high right now. And now is when people lose a lot of money on Bitcoin because they're going to start buying it right now. And then
let
it's
me
going to
tell
drop
you,
in second.
I bought interesting about Bitcoin. So I'm big into Bitcoin, and I'm going to be very long and bullish on Bitcoin for a long time. And disclaimer again, I'm a finance coach. I am not a financial advisor. There's a big
Yeah.
difference. I'm not licensed, all that stuff. Yeah, so I'm not. That's not me. I'm a coach, not an advisor. But me personally, I have a lot of money in the market. I have a lot of money in Bitcoin, and when I was fun, we were talking about that house that was the big sale, the one that I made the most profit on. I was in my home gym watching the TV, and I remember watching Bitcoin drop to 19,000 on that day, and we were like 3 days away from closing on the sale of my house. And I said, "Okay, I'm in. I'm going to start buying. I'm in. I think that this is going to go through the roof." And I've been studying it for a while. And right when I was opening in my app to buy Bitcoin, right, I was going to buy like 3 coins for $60,000, right? I got a phone call from the title office that something had gone wrong with the clothing, and it completely distracted me. And I focused on that, and I never bought the Bitcoin at 19.
Yeah.
And I was pissed. So I started buying in at around 59.
Okay.
So doing well. But my personal feeling, Bitcoin is going to go. It's going to go astronomical. If you can hold, that is the thing in investing, real estate, whatever it is. You never lose unless you sell, right? So if you're in quality names, quality assets, and you hold, you just have to hold till it gets to where you want it to be. Sometimes that's a year, sometimes that's 5 years, sometimes that's 20 years. But if you hold, my personal opinion, I think Bitcoin is going to be beyond people's comprehension in 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be interesting. If that thing didn't happen with Voyager, I would have so much money in that account. It'd be ridiculous. So I had almost 200K,
Yeah.
probably close to 600 is what I'm assuming. I had
Yeah.
Bitcoin at like 33, something like that. It's not like the lowest,
Wow.
um,
If
but
you
yeah,
had
I
bought
definitely,
Bitcoin in the first year, if you'd put 1,000 in, you'd have $660 million.
yeah. But you'd be a crazy person to buy it at that price,
Right.
right?
Correct. Right. But makes you
So
wonder, like, what else should you be buying now that's starting up that you could afford to lose $1,000? That is a gamble that if in 20 years, I mean, to me, I have money in a bunch of coins like Doge and stuff like that, where it's like,
yeah.
okay, if I lose $1,000, I spend more on that money when I take my partners to dinner.
Yeah. Right.
So it's mindset, right? It's
Yeah.
mindset, and it's also knowing what you're comfortable losing.
Yeah. My little brother, he he was like asking me about Bitcoin, and he's like totally uninvolved in like what's going on in like modern day. He's a rabbi, so he's like totally focused on like religion and
Cool.
helping people in the community. So he doesn't watch the news, he doesn't watch TV. And he asked me about Bitcoin the other day, and I was like, oh, okay. Like if
Part of
he's
the
asking me
tribe.
about, yeah, oh, okay, good. And he was like, it was funny because he asked me, he's like, yeah, thinking about buying some Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, are you okay losing that money? And he's like,
Yes.
no, I need to buy a house soon. And I was like, okay, well, don't
No.
buy Bitcoin.
As a financial coach, that's exactly what
Yeah.
I tell people. You do
Yeah.
not invest money that you are not willing to lose, or that you are not willing to leave alone for at least 5 years.
Yeah. They said they did a study at Fidelity of the best uh, performing accounts, like retirement accounts, and the best performing accounts over long periods of time were the accounts where the person who owned the account died and no one had been touching it for years, and no one must touched it whatsoever. And those are the ones who did the best. So
Well, on the topic of investing, like I don't know anything about trading, right? Like I'm not the guy that can go in the morning and try and pull 1,000 out of the market by time. Like I don't know anything about that. Reading candle wicks and the graphs and dollar cost average, leave it alone for a very long time, like you said. You can't go wrong. If you just look at the data, you can chat GPT this, you can Google it. If you look at the stock market over 100 years, you cannot lose if you leave it alone. You cannot lose. But
well, you
most
can't
people,
lose if you're like, let's say you want to retire, then all of a sudden there's a downturn right before you're about to retire,
good point. So
timing wise.
that's a good point. So what people need to be looking at is when they're about 10 years away from retirement. That's when you begin to shift the investments out of the aggressive positions into very conservative
Like
positions.
bonds and stuff like that.
Right. So I'm
Yeah.
talking whatever. It could be gold, bonds. What I mean, it could be or very safe stocks. Right. Like there are some that like just you can see their track record. They barely move. But if you're 20, 30, 40 years old, leave it. Just put it away and just don't look at it every day when the market's going up. And just leave it alone. Set the autopilot, and leave it alone for 10, 20, 30 years. Then when you get close to retirement, that's when you meet with a professional and you sit with them and you say, how do we bulletproof this and make this safe? And that's, the critical step that you brought up is, most people forget that. And then, oh, I'm turning 65 years this year. Oh, the recession just hit. Now 25, 30, 40% drop in the portfolio. Well, you're 65. You should have been looking at it at 55 and putting the plan together of what you need to do so that when the recession does hit, and it will hit because we get one on average every 10 years, again, a professional can advise. And I have a financial advisor being a coach, and I send my clients when they're ready to start having those conversations to them. My job is to get their head right and their mindset right to prepare them to sit with the financial advisor.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing your insights, your great investments, the ones that didn't work out as much. And if someone wants to reach out to you for personal coaching or personal finance coaching or business coaching, how do they find you?
I have two Facebook groups, Financial Fitness Focus and FFF for Biz. I don't know if maybe I can send them to you and maybe they can get put in this somehow, some way in a slide or something. Yeah, or some of the notes and people can DM me, David Alvas. Just look me up on Facebook, on Instagram. I have a website, financialfitnessfocus.com. They can check out if they want to look at my school, uskkarate.com. Available any of those places.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for listening. My name is Matthew Brenner. If you want to learn how to grow your martial arts school organically through the Triangle Codex, which is our 3-step process of growing martial arts schools through schools, daycares, or businesses, so you can stop gambling on Facebook ads and actually take control of the inflow of students in your school through actually putting effort into it, reach out to me, Matthew at wyourdojo.com, or visit doubleyourdojo.com. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.